When the directors of Moana first came up with the idea for Moana, Moana wasn't even in it. Another character was going to be the star. Moana 2 hits theaters this week. So here are some things I bet you never knew about the original. The story of Moana starts in the late 1970s at Walt Disney Animation Studios, when animators John Musker and Ron Clements first met while working on The Fox and the Hound. The two would rise up the ranks of Disney Animation, eventually directing The Great Mouse Detective in 1986, and then they'd go on to direct The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, Treasure Planet, and The Princess and the Frog. Not bad. When that last one finished up in 2009, they started working on an animated adaptation of Terry Pratchett's fantasy novel, More from the Discworld series. But they had trouble securing the rights, so they scrapped the project and started to brainstorm original ideas as to avoid any copyright issues. In 2011, Musker started reading about Polynesian mythology and came across the trickster folk hero Maui. Musker was fascinated by the culture of Polynesia and thought it would work as an animated film. At first, he and Clements thought they could structure the whole movie around Maui himself, so they pitched it to John Lasseter, who was in charge of Pixar and Disney Animation Studios at the time, and Lasseter encouraged them to go on some research trips to the Pacific Islands. So in 2012, Musker and Clements traveled to Fiji, Samoa, and Tahiti, and met with the locals to learn about their culture. After their trips, they shifted the focus of the story from Maui to the young daughter of a village chief. The duo was surprised to learn that Polynesian tribes stopped making long-distance sea voyages roughly 3,000 years ago. Scholars believe this might have had to do with climate changes that affected ocean currents and wind patterns. The Pacific tribes wouldn't start seafaring again for another 1,000 years, and so Musker and Clements set the story during this in-between time when ocean exploration had been forgotten, and they set it on a fictional Central Pacific Ocean island inspired by Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga. They called it Montanui, though it's worth knowing that Montanui is the real name of an islet south of Easter Island in Chilean Polynesia. Clements and Musker recruited experts from across the South Pacific region to consult on the film's cultural accuracy and sensitivity. Named the Oceanic Story Trust, this group rejected an initial Maui design that had him bald and a scene where Moana angrily threw coconuts. Taika Waititi was hired to write the movie's first draft. In his version, Moana was the only daughter in a family of 5 or 6 brothers, and the movie's themes revolved around gender roles. Waititi left the project in 2012, and the directors scrapped the brothers, the gender themes, and instead refocused the film on Moana finding herself. Waititi later joked that the only thing left from his original script was, quote, exterior ocean day. Another draft of the script had Moana's father also interested in restarting the tribe's ocean navigation, and one draft was focused on Moana rescuing her dad, who had been lost at sea. Moana's story writer, Pamela Ribben, later came up with the grandma character, who served as a mentor to Moana and a link to the past. At some point in the writing process, Moana had the last name Wialiki, but it was later dropped. Twin screenwriting team Aaron and Jordan Candle, who were born and raised in Hawaii, then came on board to deepen the emotional arcs in the script. They're credited with developing the relationship between Moana and Maui, creating the prologue, the Cave of Wayfinders, the Kakamora, and Tamatoa, but Jared Bush ended up receiving sole credit as screenwriter on the finished film. Clement and Musker conducted a worldwide search for the voice of Moana. They watched hundreds of audition tapes from across the Pacific before finding 14-year-old Ali'i Cravalho. Cravalho was born and raised in Hawaii and is of Chinese, Native Hawaiian, Puerto Rican, Portuguese, and Irish descent. Prior to landing the role, her only performing experience was in high school glee club. She knew about Disney's search for a young Polynesian girl, but she wasn't going to audition because, quote, there were already so many great submissions that she didn't think she needed to try out. But a talent agent in Oahu spotted her through a charity video contest and brought her to Los Angeles to audition in person for Moana. Casting director Rachel Sutton says Cravalho was the very last person to audition out of hundreds. It is pure coincidence that the animated character looks so much like her, as Moana was designed before the role was cast. But then, during the animation process, they were able to incorporate some of her mannerisms into the character. Clement and Musker cast mostly actors of Polynesian descent for the movie. Nicole Scherzinger, who plays Moana's mother, is Native Hawaiian. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Troy Polamahu, who voices Villager Number 1, are Samoan, while Rachel House, Tamura Morrison, and Jermaine Clement are of Maori heritage. Chris Jackson from Hamilton did Chief Tui's singing voice, and Alan Tudyk played Hei, the rooster. Tudyk is Disney Animation's good luck charm and has played a part in all of the studio's movies since 2012. In spring 2014, Disney Animation hired Lin-Manuel Miranda to write and perform the music for Moana, and enlisted the help of Samoan musician Opeta Afuai and Tarzan composer Mark Mancina. Together, they wrote 7 original songs. Miranda worked on Moana while he was in the final stretch of bringing Hamilton to Broadway, and for Tamatoa's song, Shiny, Lin-Manuel Miranda modeled the song off David Bowie because he knew Jermaine Clement would be voicing the role, and Lin-Manuel was a big fan of Flight of the Conchords' David Bowie parody song. And so it was time for Moana to head into production and get animated. About 90 animators total worked on Moana. At first, Clements and Musker considered doing Moana in the traditional hand-drawn style, but instead, it became their first ever fully computer-animated film. One reason for that was because the ocean was easier to animate in CGI, and the director said computer animation helped them sculpt the faces of the South Pacific people. The movie does have some hand-drawn animation though. Maui's sentient tattoos were done the old-fashioned way. Disney Animation's headquarters were being renovated during Moana's production, so the entire movie was made in a makeshift space in a giant warehouse in North Hollywood alongside Zootopia. Musker found this fitting as The Little Mermaid was also animated in a warehouse in Glendale. During production in 2015, the directors identified some major story issues, but they didn't have time to fix them. Clements and Musker were already working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. And so Don Hall and Chris Williams, who had just finished making Big Hero 6, came on board as co-directors to help fix the story issues. And yes, the Kakamora battle includes intentional homages to Mad Max Fury Road, which came out in the middle of Moana's production. Moana wrapped production on October 20th, 2016, just a month before hitting theaters. Its final budget was between $150 million and $175 million. Moana opened in the US on November 23rd, 2016, landing at number 1. It made $82 million across the 5-day Thanksgiving weekend, and it made $15.5 million on Thanksgiving Eve alone, which was a record at that time. Moana would go on to gross $643 million total worldwide, and Deadline says it turned a profit of $121 million. Its international release included some changes. For example, in many European countries, Moana's name was changed to Viana to avoid trademark conflicts. And in Italy, the movie is called Oceana because Disney wanted to avoid any associations with Italian adult film star Moana Pazzi. Moana was the first Hollywood film fully dubbed in the Tahitian language. And then in 2017, the movie was also dubbed in Maori and played in theaters in New Zealand, with Rachel House, Tamara Morrison, and Jermaine Clement reprising their roles, and it got a native Hawaiian language dub, with Ali'i Cravalho and Nicole Scherzinger playing their parts. Critics loved the movie. Today, 95% of the 286 reviews assessed by Rotten Tomatoes are positive. Moana was nominated for 2 Oscars, Best Animated Feature and Best Original Song for How Far I'll Go, but it lost the former to Zootopia and the latter to City of Stars from La La Land. Post-release, Moana was officially added to the list of Disney princesses. The movie spawned a free-to-play mobile game, a walkthrough attraction at Epcot, and multiple character meet and greets across Disney's theme parks. Since Disney Plus's launch in 2019, Moana has consistently been one of the most streamed titles on any platform, with over 80 billion minutes watched in just 5 years. And it was the most watched movie across all of streaming in 2023. So no wonder Disney is releasing a sequel in theaters this week. This new movie was originally conceived as a TV series, but then in February 2024, Disney announced it would be coming to theaters instead. Moana 2 was written and directed by Dave G. Derrick Jr. and features new songs written by Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear, who wrote the unofficial Bridgerton musical. And much of the original cast is returning. But wait, there's more. Disney is currently making a live-action adaptation of Moana, in which Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will reprise his role as Maui. It has a release date of July 10, 2026.